Hi, everyone, and good evening. Thank you for joining us. My name is Judith Rolls, and I am the Senior Associate Director for Alumni and Family Engagement here at Davidson College. I'm joined by my colleague, Adam Barton, who is the Digital Events Manager, and we are thrilled to welcome you to our courtside chat beyond the pages of Shot Ready by Stephen Curry, Davidson alum of Class of 10. Before we turn the program over to our presenters, I have a few quick announcements. We had a wonderfully overwhelming response. We're quite excited this evening with over 400 people registered for this evening's call. We encourage you to please submit questions using the Q&A feature. Don't hesitate to post questions throughout the presentation. The presenters will do their best at the end of tonight's call to answer questions as they are able. We have enabled our live audio transcription for this call. To enable it on your end, you can click the Show Closed Caption button on your screen and subtitles should appear. Please note that these captions are not always accurate, so we appreciate your understanding. And now for our program. Our moderator tonight is Chris Clooney, Davidson Class of 2006, Vice President and Director of Athletics at Davidson College. Since returning to his alma mater in 2018, he's focused on athletics done right, emphasizing high academic and athletic excellence. Before Davidson, he spent 10 years with the NBA, rising to the Director of International Basketball Operations. This evening, he's asked for a very brief introduction, and so with that, please join me in welcoming Chris Clooney.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you all being here. I have the honor of introducing a legend that so many people are familiar with to share this evening tonight. I'm joined by Coach Bob McKillop, 33 years as head coach of Davidson men's basketball, an institution here, not just in the college, but in the community, and now serving as the leader in residence here at Davidson College. And also famously was able to coach one Stephen Curry, whose book we'll be discussing tonight. So if you could please give Bob a warm welcome as well. Want to say a few words?
Well, certainly a footnote to that is I also had the joy of coaching Chris Clooney.
But I don't have a book. Yeah,
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. I don't know if that's going to happen. Well, speaking of the book, what an incredible piece of art. If you think about visually, I think the book is fantastic. You go through the pages and see the photos of Stephen and just the photographs and the art that's included in it. Just a beautiful book. But beyond that, I think Stephen does an incredible job of helping provide a little bit deeper insight into his mentality, his mindset, his process, how he goes through not just shooting, but preparation as a whole. And he weaves that through, growing up and then later Davidson College and the Golden State Warriors and winning championships and ties it back to life. And you really have a deep understanding for how so much of what he does on the court, relates to off the court. And I think you can see, again, also the impact that Davidson and you had on him and that he carries with him throughout his life today.
What's fascinating about the book is it mirrors in a lot of ways his documentary, Underrated. And it mirrors it simply because the whole thrust of Underrated was to create, direct, produce a movie that parents could watch with their children. It was a learning lesson for their children as well as mom and dad. And now as I read this book, that's the first thought that was triggered in my mind. This is a replica in print of what we saw in Underrated. And I was blown away by the book. It's like a Bible. And I would suggest that you got Christmas coming up. This would be a great book for grandma and grandpa to give to their sons and daughters, to their grandchildren. It'd be a great gift for parents to give to their children. It'd be a great gift for children to give to their parents, because there's a message for everybody in it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a perfect coffee table book as well, I would say. Yeah, it's perfect. So let's get into it. Stephen sort of starts talking about two things that are really important to him: grounding and growth. He talks about the ability to master and remaster the fundamentals. And he talks about two things specifically: being grounded in power and showing and demonstrating growth from challenges. Can you talk a little bit about the juxtaposition of grounding and growth and how Stephen talked about it?
It begins with this concept of coaching himself. Everyone has opinions. The world is filled with opinions. You turn on the TV, you look at the internet, you walk down the street, and everyone's expressing their opinions about what's going on in the world. the first place we should look is at ourselves. And that's the first place Steph always looks. He looks at himself. He coaches himself. And the story of the book talks about, for example, going to the Toronto Raptors practice gym during the games when Del Curry was playing for the Raptors. And what did Steph do? He went up to the practice gym during the game and imagined that he was being guarded by Allen Iverson or covering Kobe Bryant. So this is as a 8, 9, 10-year-old playing with that thought of making himself better, and yet with imagination. And I'm convinced that's one of the weaknesses in the world of basketball today. Players play with no imagination because they're structured and instructed by trainers and strength coaches and basketball coaches. They never go to the playground, to the park, and work on their game. Well, that was something that was a part of Stephen's foundation. He worked at his game with imagination as a youngster.
Yep, absolutely. One of the things that he talked about next, you talked about a ton, and I wonder if he got it from you. He talked about making life harder in practice makes things easier in life, makes things easier in the game. And you always used to say, right, hard in practice, easy in the game, or hard in practice, easy in battle.
Well, I used to say what Suvorov said, difficult in training, easy in battle.
Mm-hmm.
That was so, and I quoted him. We're already on a quote here at Davidson College, so I must footnote.
Yeah, there you go.
Alexander Suvorov. And he certainly put himself through the test every time he worked out.
Mm-hmm.
There was a tremendous amount of insight and foresight into every workout that he did. And you speak to his trainers today, he's 37 years old, 3-time, 4-time MVP, 4-time NBA champion, but he still works out with incredible passion, planning, and detail.
Yeah.
In his first NBA year, 2015, it was game number 78 of an 81-game schedule. You can imagine what the body is like after 78 games. I was out in the Oracle in San Francisco, Oakland, and I was having dinner with him after the game. And they had won every game by significant numbers. They had a great season that year. He was everyone's pick for the MVP. I'm in the family lounge after the game, and there's no staff for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Oh, he's got the press conference. He's got a lot of people he's got to speak to, especially now as the season winds down. An hour, hour 15, hour and a half. It was about an hour and 45 minutes, and he shows up. Steph, where you been? Coach, I've been lifting. Lifting? He just played 22 minutes. It's 78th game of the year. Playoffs are coming. Got to get stronger. Got to develop my core. Got to develop my stamina. I'm going to play a lot more minutes in the playoffs. Can you imagine in 2015? So that's 11 years ago. He's 26 years old, on the verge of his first MVP. He's not the icon at that point that he became, and he's still thinking about getting better. That's the mentality of Stephen Curry.
Again, difficult in training, right? On and off the court, easier in battle. He also talked about how the game slows down in the real world. And you talked about that a lot. You know, oftentimes coaches will say slow is fast. Slow down and see, catch and see, Chris, right? Catch and see, slow the game down. Don't move so quickly. He talks a lot about how he tries to slow the game down.
I've always said a few things about his athletic abilities and his physical abilities. And one of them is he has fast twitch eyes. Mm-hmm. He can see things almost before they happen. He's always one step ahead, and he sees them very quickly. And not only does he see them very quickly, he doesn't have vision through a keyhole. He has a wide angle lens, so he sees everything. He doesn't know just where the ball is. He knows where it's going to be. He doesn't know where his man is. He knows where he's going to be. He doesn't know where his teammate is. He knows where he's going to be. An incredible gift that he had. And if you look at all the great quarterbacks in the history of the game, they have that capacity to stand there in the pocket and see first look, second look, third look. They can scan the whole field rapidly. And Steph had that capacity with the ball in his hand, just like the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things he talked about, and you've talked about this a lot as well, he said, what can set you apart is joy. Stephen plays with a lot of joy. And you've talked about it Steve Kerr has talked about it. His former coach, Mark Jackson, talked a lot about it as well. And it's infectious. And you see it with his teammates. And he's had different teammates, and he's been a staple with the Warriors now for 17 years. And what sets him apart is joy, understanding that it's a game and that he's enjoying himself. And he thinks it's not just the work, it's not just the talent, it's playing with a mentality of joy, of having fun, that's going to move him to the top.
There's an interesting dynamic that occurred maybe it was 2 weeks ago. They're playing the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee. And one of the guys on the Bucks, a young stud who's been in the league 3 years, and his first year was with the Warriors, named Ryan Rollins from the University of Toledo, had a terrific game. And Ryan let it be known that he was having a terrific game as Steph Curry by the way he kept hitting Stephen, body checking him, bumping him. Draymond got very upset with him because he was really going over the line in terms of hitting Steph and then celebrating how well he was playing. I texted Steph after the game, after what he did. He goes into the locker room, they lost. The guy had 31, 33 points. Stephen takes his jersey off, signs his jersey, and sends it over to their locker room. How about that? You talk about joy.
Oh my goodness.
My text to Steph was, Steph, I don't know how you did that. I would have gone over in the locker room and punched him in the face. That's the kind of joy he has.
Yeah.
And that's the great aspect of his leadership. That joy is contagious.
Mm-hmm.
You could see it, you could feel it. Why does everyone root for him?
Yeah.
Because he lives his life with joy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fun when he gets going. Obviously, the crowd is engaged, but like you said, it's infectious. His teammates latch onto that, right? Like they start playing freer and looser, right? And the tension just starts to drop, right? Like he
That's
does that
leadership.
for everybody.
Incredible leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I have talked a lot about this. He said, I try to live on the tiny border between confidence and cockiness, right? He sort of tries to find that balance of confidence and humility. And you've heard me talk all the time. All my presentations have a great photo of Muhammad Ali standing over Sonny Liston, right? And he's just knocked him out. And I always say, we don't want to be Muhammad Ali, but we for dang sure don't want to be Sonny Liston, right? Looking up and not knowing where we are. We've got to figure out a way to live in the middle, right? Balancing that confidence and humility. Can you talk about that and how Stephen does that, not just on the court, but even in life?
Proud peacock today, feather duster tomorrow. Stephen,
I have nightmares about this stuff. Like all these little sayings, like I'll just wake up in a sweat, 2:30 in the morning, right? Sloppiness is a disease, proud peacock. Like it's just know that it still happens. But
Steph is constantly in search of the Holy Grail. He is looking for the best he can ever be, and he understands it's a continuing journey. And he brings people with him through his joy, but he brings people with him because he knows the prize, once it's reached and accepted, it's a prize that's shared by everybody, and that enhances everybody's joy. So he's in a constant quest. And I think it was, I use a lot of things of saints when I speak about Stephen. I've said that St. Francis said,
this is of Assisi.
St. Francis of Assisi.
See? Yeah.
Preach the gospel at all times, but only use words when necessary. And as you may have seen in the book, he talks about how he had to get his team focused. He was not a big voice in the locker room, but there were points where he had to become a big voice. Mm-hmm. And then St. Benedict said, see with the eyes of the heart. Well, St. Augustine said that do not become content with what you are if you want to become what you are not yet. Where you have grown pleased with yourself, there you shall remain. And Stephen just embodies that concept in terms of his humility blended with his confidence. And it's so easy for him to take that confidence and become arrogant. And isn't that the method of our world today, our leadership in our world today? No matter where you look in whatever field you're engaged in, arrogance is a part of confidence. But with Steph Curry, humility's engaged with confidence.
Yeah. It's a tremendous skill, and no few people do it like he does. I want to shift gears. He talked a lot about the ball as a grenade. Now, remember a clip of you at his camp talking about moving the ball, right? Like Stefan talks about how when he gets the ball, he wants to have it for a second. And in the book, he mentioned, I want to get rid of it. I don't want to have it. Almost treat it like hot potato, right? You remember that game, hot potato? It's like a grenade to get rid of the ball because you've got to make split-second decisions. And by doing so, you're giving your team a better opportunity to create a disadvantage or open look for a teammate or whatever it is. But like Stefan does not dribble, and sort of go no.
Whoa. Hold
General.
on. Hold on. We did a commercial, Steph and I, for Google AI. And Google AI came out with a lot of different analytic pieces from Google AI. And one of them was the amount of dribbles taken by Stefan before he scores. I forgot the statistic. I forget analytics. I'm a great believer in what Ralph Kiner said. Analytics, statistics are like bikinis. They show a lot, but they don't show everything. And so when this thing became prominent in the Google AI commercial, it opens up, one of our commercial takes was about dribbling. And I start the commercial by going, dribble. And there I am on camera doing this dribble. And everyone was laughing. And Steph, of course, said that, yes, he does dribble. And the guy that dribbles 7 times per game and scores best, other than Stefan, is Seth. Seth Curry. And I said in the commercial, I says, I can't understand how you and your brother lead the NBA in being able to score after 7 dribbles, and your father couldn't dribble. So it was a very humorous moment. But he does have that capacity to dribble and get rid of the ball. It's like a spotlight. You know, if you take the spotlight and you unscrew the spotlight and you hold it in your hand, you're going to get burned. You'll still be in the spotlight, but you're going to get burned. But if you take that spotlight, unscrew it, you have it in your hand, and you pass it, and you pass it, and you pass it, and you pass it, no one gets burned, and everyone gets in the spotlight. And that's what Stefan is. He wants to make sure everyone gets in the spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. Let the record reflect that you said AI instead of A1.
Yes, yeah.
Which is good. You normally say A1.
I'm maturing intellectually. I thought AI was A1. You know, like the steak sauce, is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly. This was a great one because I remember this one as well, having played for you. You have to help others succeed if they want to win, right? And what you always talked about was helping. If you help somebody, you help yourself, right?
Yep.
Don't just worry about yourself. Help other people, and you'll ultimately help yourself. And so it takes the emphasis away from you individually and puts it on your team, your teammates, right? In service of your team, right? The individual statistics don't matter, right? And look how well he does individually. But it's because he's focusing less on himself and focusing on the team. And he talks a lot about helping others succeed, right? That's the only way we're going to win.
Isn't it interesting how what he does on the basketball court is reflected in what he does in life?
Mm-hmm.
He's a great teammate on the basketball court, and he plays with joy. That's the way he is as a husband. That's the way he is as a father. That's the way he is as a sibling. That's the way he is as a son. And it's extraordinary that this was remarkable, again, happening last week. 5 tons of food and products were sent to Jamaica worth $10 million by Stephen Curry. Are you aware of that? You know how I'm aware of it? Drew Christie, one of our former staff members here in the athletic department, is Jamaican, and he was down there. And he sent me pictures of people with joy and smiling and happy unloading this, and it all came from Steph.
Yep.
That's the capacity to bring joy and to be a great teammate and to lead that Stefan has. You probably read in the book about Monte Ellis. Monte Ellis was direct from high school to college, to the NBA,
Yep.
and had a fairly illustrious career. And I think there are 2 poignant footnotes about Monte Ellis. One, he did not greet Stefan with the greatest amount of joy. He saw Stefan as a rival when he first came on board. And Steph and I spoke about that in his rookie year. By the end of the year, Monte was his advocate. And then after they closed out playing at the Oracle and moved to the Chase Center, Monte had been traded many years earlier. But when they had the ceremony to honor the people who played in the Oracle and wore the Warriors jersey, Steph made sure that Monte was back there for it, along with Chris Mullins and Al Attles and, Baron
Davis,
Baron Davis,
Steven
and
Jackson,
all the
yep.
great guys that played. And he said, I didn't think that Monte really liked me, but that never bothered me.
And it also talked about how Monte came along at one point and said, hey, like, we have to do this together in
Yep.
order to be successful.
Yep.
But Stephen, instead of, pushing him away, embraced him and gave him that space to do that. That's why he's such a good leader.
It's interesting how Steph's kindness touches every part of his life. And about 3 weeks ago, there's a headline in one of the internet stories: Steph Curry gets his first flagrant foul. Did any of you see that?
I saw that. Yeah.
First flagrant foul in 16 years. Did you see the photo and the video of it?
Yeah.
He closed out on a guy, and he got a little bit too close, and his foot got underneath the guy's foot as he shot, but leaned forward, and his foot stepped on Steph's foot, and they called a flagrant foul
It's
for
a
that.
new rule. It's the landing zone. Yeah.
That's Steph's flagrant foul. And yet it became a headline because they're going to get clicks.
What do you think Draymond Green's first flagrant foul was?
It wasn't his last.
No, absolutely.
But I thought about that when I saw the headline. I read it and I watched the video. I said, you can't injure character. People were trying to take Stephen down. You can't injure character.
Yeah, absolutely. He talks a lot about embracing discomfort. He said, focus on how you respond to it. And one of the things that I mentioned that made me think of you, he said, pain will reward you for the rest of your life. And literally all I could think of was pay me now or pay me later, which is another one of your sayings. Pay me now or pay me later, but you're going to have to pay. It doesn't matter whether you do it now or you do it later. But in order to get to where you want to get to, you're going to have to pay. He says, pain will reward you for the rest of your life.
Well, that's his whole approach to working himself out, with his attention to detail. Everything he does with detail. Pay me now or pay me later. If you don't have time to do it right now, when are you going to have time to do it right? And Stephen understands there's only a certain amount of time you're given in life. And if I'm going to be out on this court, I'm going to make it productive. And it's going to be right every time I go out there. And it's that repetition, that consistency, that's what makes him so great. There's one picture in the book, the one photo in the book that's extraordinary. It's a photo of 5 or 6 different basketballs after they were shot. And if you look at it, every ball is in the same rotation. It's
amazing. It's amazing.
Absolutely extraordinary.
It's amazing.
But that's the consistency of Stephen doing it right the first time, and therefore doing it right every time. Not a shooting star, a shining star.
The point he made right before that was consistency at the point of release. It's amazing how that's what it is about. He literally shoots the ball the same way every single time.
There are no shortcuts in his life.
Yeah.
Everything's about details.
Yep. Details and little things. Talk to us a little bit about failure, whether it's his first game, having a double-double with turnovers, right? Or struggling as a young player in the NBA, because what he mentioned was obsessing over failure is just a distraction from the work of improvement, right? Young people sometimes focus on the fact that they failed, as opposed to flipping it and using it as an opportunity to grow. Goes back to a little bit of grounding and growth. But he said you can't obsess over failure, because then that's going to distract you from improvement.
I saw the heartbreaking flow of players during the recruiting period walking off the court after a game, going into their backpack, looking for their phone to see what is being said about them. When we recruited Stephen, the defining moment occurred in July of 2005 in Las Vegas at an AAU tournament. He's playing for his father, a nondescript AAU team, not affiliated with a sneaker company. So they had no high profile players or any recognition. In Las Vegas, it's played in 8, maybe 10 different gyms, and each gym had an auxiliary gym, a back gym like this, and then there's Belk Arena. All the big time coaches are always in Belk Arena because that's where their sneaker companies are. In the back gyms, a couple of coaches would be there. And I remember seeing a game in July, and he was awful. Dribbled it off his foot, shot an air ball, missed foul shots, threw it out of bounds, got beat defensively. But what I saw was he listened in the huddle. He stood on the bench and cheered his teammates on. He came to the huddle attentive to what was going on. He patted his teammates on the back. He ran back on defense. He never once complained to the official. I saw a character there. More than character was his ability to stay in the present tense. Just like I mentioned before about the quarterback, where he's in a slow down mood.
Yep.
I saw that. And wouldn't you know, that's the reason we offered him the scholarship. Of course, we thought he could shoot too, but his body didn't dictate that we should offer him. But it was the character and the banking on his ability to shoot.
Yeah.
We offer him a scholarship a month later, and first game in a Davidson uniform, a year and 3-4 months, November of 2006. We're in Ann Arbor, Michigan, playing Eastern Michigan in the Michigan tournament. First game, he was awful. Absolutely awful. And we're losing to Eastern Michigan by 18 points at halftime. And Stephen had 9 turnovers in the first half. And he wasn't even the point guard. Jason Richards was the point guard, and Steph had 9. And when the shooting guard has 9 turnovers, usually they're pick sixes. They're leading to run out baskets. And that's part of the reason we had given up an 18-point lead. Halftime, the coaches gather outside the locker room. Players are in the locker room discussing what's going on. We discuss what we're going to do. Hey, should we keep Steph in the game? We're down 18 points. He's turned it over 9 times. How do we keep him in the game? Remember Las Vegas. Remember the character. Remember the living in the present moment. Well, sure enough, we kept him in the game. He goes out there in the second half. We win the game by 4 points. He had a double-double. 15 points, 13 turnovers. Not the kind of double-double you want, but nevertheless, it was a defining moment for him because it showed him how much we trusted him. And I think you could fast forward that to maybe what Mark Jackson said when Mark Jackson was the coach and they traded Monte Ellis, yet the Bucks wanted Stephen Curry. And Mark Jackson told Steph, the Bucks wanted you, but here are the keys. We want you to drive our car. That's the kind of result you get when you put confidence in Steph. He's going to demonstrate, I'm going to take that confidence because that's going to really help me out.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen is a huge man of faith, right? And he talks about it openly. And he mentioned in the book, talking about faith and gratitude. He said, and this is a great line, he said, we are obligated, I feel an obligation to do right by the blessings we've been given. Right? So he feels a sense of a responsibility because he has been blessed. And we've all been blessed. But I think Stephen truly understands that. It's how hard he's worked, how talented he is, but he is blessed and feels like he has an obligation. And so it's no different than what you talked about providing materials for Hurricane Melissa down in Jamaica. It's no different than Eat, Learn, Play. It's no different than all of the different philanthropic and social community outreach initiatives that he and Aisha and his foundation are engaged in, giving back, and he gives back in a strong way. His parents instilled that in him, but he feels like I've been blessed and I want to give back because I've been blessed.
You know, when he left Davidson after his 3rd year, he sent this postcard. And I suspect some of you might have received this because you were season ticket holders at that point, but he sent this postcard to every fan. Thank you, Davidson, with a note on the back. How many 20-year-old kids do that? And the night of the draft in the green room in Madison Square Garden, Sonia Curry brought a sign to the draft. And we're sitting at this round table, and as soon as it's announced that Stephen is the 7th pick, the cameras pan our table, and Sonia holds up a sign, "Thank you, Davidson." You see how the parenting of Dale and Sonia led to the development of Steph Curry. Extraordinary what he did in terms of thank you. And that's the gratitude that he carries. Now, you might remember when he made his 3-pointers here, he would point up to the sky, acknowledging that that was a gift from God. And it's kind of a dynamic that we get confused about in our society. There are people that think God's a tooth fairy, like a vending machine. I put a couple of prayers in and I get the prize. And we're playing Rhode Island in 2018 in Washington, D.C. for the A-10 championship. Sunday at 1 o'clock, CBS. 8 o'clock that morning, I'm in church, I'm in Mass in Washington. And as I walk to shake the hand of Danny Hurley, the coach of Rhode Island, about 12:15 that morning, right before the game, Danny takes my hand and he says, "We canceled each other out." I said, "What?" He says, "I was sitting a couple of rows behind you at Mass today, and we canceled each other out." And there again, we have this mentality that God's a tooth fairy. And I really believe, as I've watched Stefan's life unfold, and I watch the heartbreak he's had as well as the joy he's had, he's been steady in his commitment to his faith as receiving so much in the terms of gifts from God. And those gifts, whether they come out as victories or losses, sorrows or joys, tears or laughter, it is a gift from God.
You know what else that story about Dan Hurley tells me is that you got to sit in the front in Mass. You get rewarded.
Maybe I got a couple of more purgatory lights or whatever they are.
Talk a little bit about the license to shoot, because he mentioned that specifically in the book, and what that was like with Stefan. I remember that with me and players before. I didn't have a license to shoot. Brendan Winters had a license to shoot. Matt McKillop had a license to shoot. Jason Morton had a license to shoot, as long as it wasn't a floater. You gave out licenses to shoot. What was that license like for Stefan?
Well, just to add a footnote to that, Jason Morton made a floater against College of Charleston on February 14th, Valentine's Day, in which Jimmy Dykes, the lead commentator at ESPN, had said in advance of the game, Charleston's going to break Davidson's heart. We were undefeated at that point, so we didn't break his heart. Yeah. That was Jason Morton's floater.
That was, yeah.
But anyway,
so he could shoot floaters. So.
But anyway, back to the question about Stefan license. We had decided that players were worried too much about, if I miss the shot, coach is going to be upset with me. I wanted to remove that defender from their mentality. How could I do that? So I had our players believe that their shooting ability was based upon their ability to gain a license to shoot, just like you have a license to drive. Some people have a beginner's license. Some people have a restricted license. Some people have a regular license. And some people have a revoked license. And I explained it to them, and it really resonated with our team, so that when they shot, oh yeah, I have the license to shoot that shot. Ian Johnson could shoot top of the key threes anytime he wanted.
No corner threes, though.
No corner threes, correct. And you might not remember this, but my last year, Sam Meninga had his license revoked until the last 10 seconds of the shot clock. He could not shoot unless there were less than 10 seconds. He shot 44% that year. Mm-hmm. So it had an impact. And with Stefan, he was unrestricted. He could shoot anywhere. He didn't even need a license. He'd come across half court. But it's remarkable how he has taken that license to another level. And he's taken it so that it's created space, which has opened up the court. And I get very annoyed when people say that Stefan had ruined the game. Certain commentators, the experts, he's ruined the game. Everyone's shooting 3-pointers. Well, he shot 70% from layups. He shoots 90% from the foul line. How has he ruined the game when he's get that percentages from those two ranges?
I don't know if they know what they're talking about.
I would agree.
He also talked a lot about building a team identity around trying to win. And I inevitably thought of trust, commitment, and care, right? Like, as a director of athletics, I charge our coaches to set a core set of values across their program. So whatever it is, because when there's trouble, that's what you rely on. You talked about character. Character doesn't go anywhere. Values don't go anywhere. And Stephen talked about building a team identity around trying to win. And he was talking about when they finally got over the hump and won their first championship and, played the Cavs and then got Kevin Durant, et cetera. But talk a little bit about TCC, trust, commitment, and care, and how Stephen wears that on his heart.
Stephen is extraordinary about the way he's able to see things. And I think his quote in the book was, culture defeats dysfunction because team conquers individual. I believe that was what he said. And it was remarkable how he also said this other thing about the stat sheet. Do you remember what he said about the stat sheet? Remove the stat sheet or something, and it destroys dysfunction when you remove the stat. Championships are won by destroyed stat sheets. So people don't look at individual, but looked at collective. And to me, that was the master of Stephen Curry in his Davidson uniform, which he's carried forward to the Warriors. When you would see Thomas Sander do everything in his capacity to set a screen for Stephen, Jason Richards to do everything he could to get him the ball, Boris Meno, Steven Rossiter, a host of others, set screens, outlet the ball to him. Even Max Paulus-Goslin, a great defender, almost as if he was on a mission to be a secondary defender behind Stephen if Stephen got beat, because we didn't want to have Stephen get beat. It was extraordinary how he got his teammates ownership of that. And it all goes back to his first press conference. His first press conference was the night after the Eastern Michigan game. We played Michigan. We did lose by 7 or 8 points. Stephen got 32. Remember, it was the confidence builder at halftime, confidence builder post-game. We were 15 and 13. Double-double was not a factor in the game, but a victory for us. And he supported 32 points the next night. So the microphone is in his face after the game, and the cameras are on him. And what does he say? How do you feel about getting 32 points in your second college game in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in Chrysler Arena? How do you feel about that, Steph? Well, I'd like to thank Jason Richards for getting me the ball. And if Thomas Sander doesn't set those screens and Boris and Steven don't outlet the ball, I don't get open. And I made so many mistakes defensively, but every time I made a mistake, Max helped me out. So second game of his career, an 18-year-old kid on a stage of a lifetime, and that's what he says. That's where the teamwork comes in.
A couple more, because I want to open it up for questions, and we have a ton of questions here. He talked about setting the record, the three-point record in MSG in 2021.
Correct.
What was that like?
I have witnessed a lot of games at Madison Square Garden personally. I have never seen 19,000 plus cheer for an adversary, for an opponent, like they did for Stephen Curry. It was 2 minutes into the game. He had missed his first shot. And as soon as he touched the ball, there was oohs and ahs in the stands. The infectious joy that resonated from his success just filled the Garden. It was captivating. And to be there and see that and see the way his teammates responded, but to see the way the opponent responded. The respect that is accorded to him is extraordinary. And I think one of the heartbreaking moments for him, and it was for me as well, across the Warrior bench sat Del Curry, and over in the corner sat Sonia Curry. And I think it was heartbreaking for Steph that he couldn't give the ball to the two of them together. He had to give it to just Del because he only had one basketball.
Yeah. It was tough. One more question. And I love this quote because it makes me think about, you talk about the greatest gifts all the time, and then we'll open it up. But he said, you can't slow down time, but you can value it. Make it purposeful. That was towards the end of the book, and I thought it was tremendous. Talking about making the most of your time, having an intentionality with what you're doing. And you always talk about time. I believe the other one is love.
Yes.
But talk to us about valuing time, making it purposeful, being intentional, and how Stefan does that so well.
The two greatest gifts that we have as humans are time and love. Uh, Steph understands those gifts and gives them abundantly. And I wish I had the capacity to give them as abundantly as Stefan does. He's a pace setter with that, in my judgment. You can make more money, but you can't make more time. You're given only a certain amount of time in life. And Stefan values it, not just for himself, though, but the love allows him to give it to everyone else. And that, to me, is one of the hallmarks of greatness, leadership, sainthood. That's why I have such an affinity for who he is, what he is, and how he lives his life.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'd like to open it up for questions. You all, please raise your hand, and I'll repeat the question for everybody at home if you have them, but I'll start with one here. This is from Jim. It says, it seems to me that the book is so valuable to kids because of Stefan's emphasis on being prepared for whatever you do. It's a big book, but it's an inspiration for a kid's life. And you mentioned that in terms of it's a great gift for a kid or for grandkids, et cetera. What's your reaction to that?
You know, he speaks about his son Cannon in the book. And this is what he says: you can only listen when you're ready. And that was his struggle with getting Cannon to listen, who he never listens. And I was out there at his camp in August, and Stefan assigned Jason Richards to babysit while he was lecturing. Oh, man, he's a handful. And Steph understands that.
Yeah.
He doesn't, you know, you can only listen when you're ready. So he says part of fatherhood is learning their language so you can practice having real conversations about things that matter to them. I'm 75 years old, and I never paid attention to all these silly little dolls and what are the swords that the kids use today that Charlie uses all the time?
Lightsaber.
Yeah. Now I'm going to find out about that so I can have a conversation about that. So it's not just for children, this book. It's for everybody.
Charlie and I have had some great lightsaber battles, just so you know. We're Star Wars fans. This is from Kirby. I think the strongest part of this book is his discussion about leadership, and that's been a recurring theme. He explained how he does it and almost lays out a way for any of us to do it. Can you talk a little bit about, again, Stefan's leadership and how it kind of flowed through the book? I mean, we're talking about Shot Ready. We're talking about his process, but it really is a blueprint for how he leads and how he inspires others to lead.
You know, he has leadership based on some very solid principles, and they're consistently evident throughout the book. And of course, one of them we mentioned already, confidence with humility. A second one is you must grow tough without losing your tenderness, or you must grow tender without losing your toughness. And he has an extraordinary balance between those two. And he also has extraordinary balance between discipline and freedom. I mean, some of the things he does on the court, he's wheeling and dealing, but he's got discipline about it. And it's that balance between discipline and understanding. Discipline comes first. And then the final point that about his leadership is his power, and he understands his power. It's always in harmony with truth. And look at the people in power today, in whatever walk we're talking about. Is their power in harmony with truth? And you look at Stefan, his power is always in harmony with truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. The Olympics.
Amazing.
Yeah. So the question is about the Olympics. Can you talk about
Sure.
that moment or those moments?
I was in Las Vegas before they went to Paris. They left for Paris on a Wednesday, late July. And on Monday, I flew out to watch their final practice and their final exhibition against Canada on Tuesday. I watched practice. He was typical Steph, utilizing every second he's out there, committed, doing it right the first time. No pay me now, pay me later. And he's with a bunch of superstars who were not accustomed to that same focus, work ethic, concept of living in the moment. And they were more concerned about where they're going to eat that night and who they're going to take selfies with. And you could just see as the practice unfolded, there was that sort of mentality. Steph stayed after practice, shot for about another 30 minutes with a trainer there, with a player there. And then we went out that night and he said to me, my biggest challenge is I've got to be a leader on this team. Everyone can score. Everyone's a superstar, but we can't play a game if everyone wants to score and everyone wants to be a superstar. So I've got to be a leader. And in the first 5 games, he did not score very much. In fact, shot poorly. But it was just like that movie I told you about in Las Vegas. He greeted his teammates. They came off the bench. He listened in the huddle. He cheered the fans when they cheered for the team. He encouraged the fans during dead balls. He patted guys on the back. He was a voice of joy and teamwork. Then they play Serbia in the semifinals. And all of a sudden, little tightness upon the part of LeBron and Embiid and Anthony, whatever the guy's name is.
Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis. And they're getting a little tight. And Stephen now understood, okay, this is my time. And sure enough, he delivered. And then when it came to the French game, it was even more magnificent. And to this day, I can still chuckle when I see with a minute to go, a little bit more to go, LeBron James has the ball and he gives it up to Stephen. And then he sets a screen for Stephen. And God bless LeBron James. I don't know how many times he's passed the ball at crunch time, nor set a screen at crunch time, but he did it at that moment because he was part of Steph's team. And he was the Pied Piper at that point, and the Pied Piper played the tune that delivered the gold.
I just wanted to say that it's a great question about the Olympics. I wore my Stephen Curry Olympic shoes today. Shout out to Curry Brand. No news about Curry Brand recently, but good news. Yeah, an incredible moment. Incredible moment. Next question here in the audience. Yes.
Hearing all this about his leadership, and I've quoted this game many, many times, and I might get it wrong. So talk about University of Maryland, Baltimore County, his game.
Loyola, Maryland.
Yeah. Oh, Loyola.
Loyola, Maryland.
Loyola, Maryland.
Yeah, so the question is about the Loyola, Maryland game. You want to talk about why that game was unique?
We played it right here in Belk Arena, and we're decided favorites, and Stephen's the leading scorer in the country, and the coach makes a determined decision that he's going to go down in history by holding Stephen Curry scoreless. So he's going to devise a defense that has never been used, a triangle and 2 with the 2 defenders not playing 2 opponents, but 1 opponent. So they sandwich Stephen from the time the ball became an offensive ball until they got the ball back. And at the 16-minute mark in the game, Stephen recognized what was going on, comes to the bench and says, Coach, I'm going to stand in the corner at half court and we will play 4-on-3. We had an 18-point lead at halftime. Steph had not shot. Second half, we figured they're going to change their strategy. Sure enough, they start the same way. Even the Loyola players were saying, man, our coach is nuts. He's crazy. And we wound up winning by 33, 34 points. Stephen took 1 shot in the game, did not score. And as you might know, if you're the leading scorer in the country with a 30-game schedule and you get 0 points in 1 game, it's pretty tough to get back to the level of being the leading scorer in the country. He sacrificed that for the victory of the team. Sacrifice equals reward.
Reward. Absolutely. Stephen has a question here. It's already been answered. He talked about guidelines for shots each player on the team can take, and we talked about having the license to shoot. Monica had a question here, and this is a tough one. It's effectively saying, what is something Stephen taught you that you've carried with you or used throughout the rest of your coaching career? I mean, this book had so much, you carry so much, but what's something specifically that Stephen taught you or continues to teach you?
The balance factor, that there's the balance between confidence and humility. I came here with great confidence, but tremendous arrogance. The factor of balancing toughness and tenderness. I came here with, I thought, terrific toughness, had no tenderness whatsoever.
None.
And and I learned to balance those 2 things. I always felt I was honest, and so I had the power of honor and truth. And I always felt that I had discipline before freedom, but I thought the tenderness and toughness and also the humility with the confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Is there one moment in the Elite Eight run that makes you think of Steph above all the other moments?
Yeah. So a moment in the Elite Eight run that makes you think of Stefan above all the other moments.
There are so many moments during that run. You know, it was interesting. The other night we had a game against Charlotte, and we have the game 2-point lead with 20 seconds to go, and Hunter Adams dribbles the ball up court and is in rhythm. He's open, licensed. The time and score has a factor on that license, and he shot a 3. And my goodness, how Matt stayed alive after that, I don't know. But he made it. And of course, as soon as he did that, I thought back to Gonzaga. Tie game against Gonzaga, 54 seconds. Max Paulus-Goslin, who is not a great 3-point shooter, stuck with the ball, right corner, shoots it, barely grazes the rim, falls to the right side right over there. Andrew Lovedale beats 3 Gonzaga players, fights him for the ball, passes it out. Steffens now had retreated because he knew he's going to have to get back on defense because they're going to get the rebound because Max shot it. And Steffens back on defense, and all of a sudden Steph sees it. Andrew gets it, sprints up to the line, catches it in rhythm, shoots it just like Hunter did. But that's Stephen Curry. 2, there's a tie game and it's 54 seconds, so we would have another possession. So it was not the end of the game, and he made it. So that moment will forever be with me, that a loose ball recovered by Andrew Lovedale got us the game. And if Stephen caught that and dribbled it, geez, you know, who's to say we're going to get that great shot for Stephen Curry again? He was wide open, in rhythm, inside out. Oh.
One of the biggest rebounds in Davidson basketball history. Yeah. So Stephen was named 2025 U.S. News and World Report top leader in public service. That was recent. Oh, this is from President Doug Hicks, by the way. How you doing, Doug? Notice I made sure to get to his question. How did Davidson shape his focus on leadership and service?
You know, I think being part of the culture here on this campus accentuates it. There's something in the water here. There's something in the intimacy here. It's an extraordinary environment to be in to foster leadership and service. And Steph came with it. Let's be very clear about that. What Sonia and Dell did as parents in raising Stephen, his faith, his attendance at Charlotte Christian, all of that brought to us a pretty refined young man. And he came here and saw a new world of being able to get on a national stage while utilizing the intimacy, the grace, the honor, the integrity of Davidson College. And, you know, our environment here, I think, just facilitated it, but really galvanized it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Not a question, just a comment. Thank you, Chris and Coach. The day Shot Ready came out, my son Trey got it for me as a gift. This is from Skip. Before I read the book, I already felt joy. What I love about the book is it teaches self-accountability and self-awareness in so many ways that I, as a 65-year-old, can reflect on to make myself better and continually improve. Get better every day.
Yeah. That's from Skip Brown, class of 82, maybe. One of our just great players and alums, and he remained intimately involved with the program despite being in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. As a Ravens fan, I can attest to that. Some Molly. Steph says no one is made of wins and talks about the challenge young athletes have today with the pressure and exposure of a constant spotlight from social media and how that is a product, not the process. How do you coach your athletes? How did you coach your athletes? How should we coach our athletes or kids today to keep Steph's mentality of focus on the process in the face of so much social media that only focuses on the product?
We continually spoke about when the banner hangs in the rafters, everyone owns a piece of the banner. When Stephen had that gold medal around his neck, everyone stood on the podium and listened to the national anthem. And the concept of team is extraordinary in this arena right now. When Chris was a sophomore, on a fall morning, Saturday morning, 11 o'clock, we had to go over to Lake Norman to take our team picture for the media guide and for the poster. And I had Chris and all of his teammates get into canoes in Lake Norman, 11 o'clock on a early October morning. What they want to do on a Saturday morning when there's no practice beginning until October 15th, they just wanted to sleep in. And here they had to get uniforms on, go over to the lake, get in a uniform, get in a canoe, and get this silly picture taken. And the whole concept was the canoe theory. The canoe theory being someone's going to be at the head of the canoe and directing where we're going. Everyone's going to have a seat in the canoe, an assigned seat, and a paddle. And if everyone has their paddle in the water and the guy out front leads, stops for refreshments when necessary, rests when necessary, gets the obstacles out of the water, and everyone keeps their canoe in the water paddling instead of pretending they're paddling, it'll slow the boat down. Not paddling, we won't go as fast. Standing up because you don't like your seat, you're in the back and you're not in the starting lineup, you'll tip it over. It was a great metaphor for the way leadership occurs.
Mhm.
And you remember that photo, right?
Oh, yeah, it's hanging up in my childhood room back at home in Maryland. So it also, if you remember, where was the Final Four that year?
And what was really fascinating, the Final Four was in San Antonio that year.
Mhm.
And because of that, actually, it was not that year. The Final Four was in San Antonio 2 years earlier. And that's where I got the idea, because you're on the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and all of a sudden you see these boats coming down with all the fans, the cheerleaders, the band, the players. And I got this image of, wow, that's really cool. And sure enough, I brought it back and we had the picture taken. And guess where the Final Four was in 07, 08? San Antonio. And we were one shot away from that.
All right, Coach. Great evening. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all so much for being here at home. I wanted to leave you with one last word before I turn it back over to Judith to close us out about Shot Ready, an incredible book by Stephen Curry. Go out and get your copies. I will make one other note before you close and we turn it over to Judith. December 30th, mark your calendars. Davidson home against Duquesne. Stephen will be here. They play the Hornets on December 31st, and he will be honored at halftime of that game by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. If you remember, they're naming exit 30 on the I-77 the Stephen Curry interchange. Bob surprised him on the Today Show, right, the Jenna Bush show, with a replica sign. If you remember, a few weeks ago, Stephen had no idea that Bob was going to be there. But they will do the formal presentation at halftime, so Stephen will be here for that. We just announced it publicly, so tickets are on sale. So pick up those tickets. Pick up your copy of Shot Ready, right? It's a great gift for the holiday season. Bob, last few thoughts.
You know, we read headlines with dread, angering ourselves about events that we think we have no control over. But we are never actually powerless. We can bring change. We can really bring change by reforming our own hearts and our own homes. That's where it starts. And I think Stephen's book clearly accentuates that. Coach yourself first, then coach your family. And remarkable things can happen in his community, on his campus, in his country. Stephen is the catalyst for that and a great leader that demonstrates that.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you to Bob and to Chris. Really appreciate the incredibly insightful program this evening and sharing your thoughts on the philosophy explored in the book Shot Ready and all your wonderful stories to go with. A huge thanks to everyone who joined us virtually this evening, as well as our small studio audience that we have here with us in the court. Please note that the recording of tonight's event will be available on the Davidson College YouTube channel in a week or so. In the coming weeks, we'll also share an announcement about the featured book club for our spring virtual book club. And at this time, thank you to everyone for joining us this evening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this wonderful night. Thank you.
Go Cats, dude.